Hey guys, welcome to L&D Home. It is finally our kitchen island video. We are going to be taking this old cabinet that we found at Habitat for Humanity and making it into a kitchen island. Let's take a look at the cabinet. It was actually marked $40 at Habitat for Humanity, but they were having a sale that day. We paid $10, guys, $10 for this cabinet. Now, it does not have a top, but we already have one, so no worries. Both drawers are functioning perfectly fine, and it does have a shelf that goes on the inside, which is going to be perfect for all of the storage needs that we have. Off camera, my husband did start putting some paneling on the back that we had left over from a previous project because the back, it was open, it was ugly, it didn't look very great. Now, the paneling is a different texture than the rest of the cabinet, but I think once everything is all painted, it's going to look perfectly fine, especially after everything is all flush. And you're going to see here in a minute how he made the paneling flush to the cabinet. Since my husband has worked with this paneling before in a previous DIY that we did not record, he knew that his router would be the perfect tool to cut it. This paneling is really hard to cut evenly, and the router is going to make the paneling nice and flush against the cabinet, and we're going to get a really clean, crisp seam from the paneling to the actual cabinet. And he does have some tips for you guys working with paneling and working with the router coming right up.
They got a head on them when they hold it on. If you use just brad nails, it would
slip off.
It would just slip off. Just using shorter nails though, because these long ones have a tendency to bend. And then that's right.
Shorter nails, he says, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't look at the state of our garage. We're working on it.
It's not as bad as it was like 2 hours ago. I tap it nice and slow. Giggity. So it's like the thumb indicates which way you want to point the router, like the face of it. So which direction you're going, you want that thumb facing out. I believe. I saw it once on a YouTube video. I may have it backwards. It may be the other way. Who knows? All I know is this way is working.
It is now the next day and I'm ready to prep the cabinet and do some trim. So I'm taking off this painter's tape that we're holding the doors. I did start using some Deglosser, but I actually found doing a scuff sand was a little bit better, so I did that as well. There was some clear caulking on the top, so I just wanted to scrape all that off. I'm not super worried about it because we're putting a top back on it, but I wanted our top to sit flush, so I did want to scrape off as much of that silicone caulking as I possibly could. This is when I kind of decided, you know what, I don't know, the Deglosser was just really messy. The Deglosser was just really messy. It didn't really seem to be doing much of anything. So you're going to see in a little bit that I do give the entire thing a nice scuff sand. There was quite a mess from him using the router, so I just wanted to get all of that cleaned up so it wasn't going everywhere when I was trying to later on paint.
But you can never go back. Struggle to survive, and you're still alive.
I bought this brad nailer. It's an electric one from Amazon. I will link it down below, but there is definitely a learning curve with it. It did really not want to go into this paneling very well, so I did have to hammer some of the brad nails in because it was just not working the way I hoped. I was really discouraged, but I did kind of figure out how to use it a little bit better later on in the project. But I did have quite a few brad nails to hammer in because, well, I've never used a brad nailer, so I had to figure it out. Now I am measuring a board for the bottom. There was no toe plate, like kick plate on this, so we just had this extra piece of wood. I went over to the saw and cut it, and now I need to attach it so it's nice and secure. One tip that my husband had for the paneling was he put that piece of wood on the bottom and the back that was not originally there. And that was just to hold the paneling on because it was kind of wobbling and waving a little bit. So he wanted to be able to nail into something. So he did attach that board to the back and it made everything way more sturdy. I am using some wood glue and I'm also going to be using some nails. Because the brad nailer is not very strong and the nails that come with it are not very long, I'm going to have to actually hammer this board in. I used 3 nails on each side, making sure everything was lined up. This is the trim that I picked up to use for this project because it was the cheapest. It was $3.06 at our local Lowe's. And we're going to be painting everything anywhere way, so I didn't really care what kind of wood I was using, but I did want to have this be budget friendly. You're going to see that this is the moment coming up here soon where I messed up. That board that I nailed in was actually supposed to go higher. It was supposed to touch the bottom of the cabinet, and I was supposed to put trim on the actual bottom because there's kind of a space that you're going to see from the side. So here in a minute, you're going to see, well, I messed up. And I tried to fix it, putting something in that space, but we're going to fix it again later in this video. So just some tips. Make sure that you are remembering what you're supposed to be doing before you attach any boards. I didn't remember that, and the board was already on there. I had already nailed this trim piece in, so it was a little bit too late for me to turn back. So here is me trying to fix the problem, but I came up with a better fix after this.
Take a quick look and settle your regrets. Laying out the bricks now, as if you need a wall to stop the fall.
While I was waiting on that wood glue to dry, I decided to start with one of the doors and both of the drawers. This is the primer that I picked up. I just wanted to give everything a nice prime so that my cabinet paint would adhere to it. I will have the primer and the cabinet paint linked in the description box below. I have not used this primer, but I have used the cabinet paint before on our kitchen cabinets. It's holding up pretty well considering how much those cabinets go through. This primer says it takes about 20 minutes to dry, so I just did one coat on both sides of the door, obviously, but I just did one coat, and then after about 20 or 30 minutes, I was ready to start painting.
Your bones are not even broken yet.
I did not like that the hinges were gold. We just don't do that in our home. So I did give them a coat of black. I was very light with it because I didn't want anything to glob up. These are leftover handles that we had. I didn't want to spend any money on handles. They're expensive, guys. They're really expensive. So I had those in my stash and I gave them a couple coats of paint as well. I then started painting the drawers and the back of the door. I wanted to start with the back of the door first, just so, you know, in case I made any mistakes, it was on the inside. But this paint went on really smooth. It does get tacky and start drying rather quickly, so I will say that you have to work pretty fast, and you do want to make sure that you don't have any drips that are going to show up in your final product. How I kind of remedied that was once I had the coat on there, I just went very lightly with my brush just to wipe off any drips that may have occurred.
Without your regrets. Carry on. Even if you've been misled, tell all of your dreams are dead.
In total, I did 2 coats on the inside of the door and 3 coats on the outside of the door and 3 coats on both of the drawers. I'm not going to show all the coats because, well, that would be boring, but I wanted to tell you what I did. I also like to wrap my paintbrush up in between coats and pop it in the fridge. I usually use a Ziploc bag, but I was fresh out, so if you have saran wrap, that will work as well. It just keeps your brush ready so that you can keep painting. Here we are back in the garage, and we're adding this trim piece. This is where we're going to remedy the situation. So since I messed up, we're going to do double trim. So this trim that you see with that space in the middle, we have the 2 trim pieces. We're now going to have to do that around the entire cabinet because I was moving too quickly and not paying attention. So I am just adding that second piece of trim. I did have to run back to Lowe's to get another trim piece because I hadn't bought enough because I was not expecting to do this. But even though it cost me some extra money, some extra time, and a lot of frustration and headache, I actually really like the way the double trim turned out. I think it adds a lot to the cabinet.
Even if you can't forget, take a quick look.
Before I paint, I want to kind of seal and caulk the trim pieces so that way when I paint, I have a seamless line and oops, and I don't have like any like cracks or crevices that you can see. So I'm just using this caulk. This is from Target. We used it in our kitchen. We've used it in our mudroom makeover. And then I just use a little bit of water on my finger just to get a nice clean line. And this caulk dries in about 30 minutes. So I'll be ready to paint really quickly. And make sure when you do this that you get paintable caulk. I have messed up before and just got regular and the paint won't stick. So make sure that if you're going to be caulking your seams on a project like this, that you get caulk that is actually paintable. I am no surgeon. I cannot make a straight line. But even though that this edge was really seamless, I did want to just make sure I filled in any tiny little gaps because I knew the paint would show that even if I couldn't see it with the naked eye. I did my best to fill all of those brad nail holes, and there were a lot of them. I just used regular putty because that wood filler you see right there is completely dried up. So I just used the putty that I've used around the house, let that dry, and then gave everything a good sand. I do like this putty. It's really convenient because it's pink when you put it on, and then it turns white when you know that it is dry. And here we are just trying to finish off some of those trim pieces that we had to work on for the double trim because, again, I was working too fast and messed up. Here we are, day 3, and I am finally ready to actually prime the cabinet. Everything is spackled and sanded and filled. All the trim is on, and I'm just using that same primer. I did use almost 2 cans of this primer on this entire project, including the drawers and the doors and the cabinet. Not a full 2 cans, but almost 2 cans. And I'm not going for full coverage here, and no, I'm not taping off the inside of the cabinet. If some spray paint gets in there, I'll clean it up later. I'm not really worried about it. So I didn't tape off the cabinet, and I'm not going for full coverage. I just want a good base. Now it is time for me to finally start putting on cabinet paint, which is so satisfying because you get to start seeing the project come together. I absolutely love this brush, by the way. It was $9. Never spent that much on a paintbrush in my life. But I suggest that I will have it linked down below. I absolutely love it. It fits great in your hand, and it's high quality. I did try to pull in a roller, and I actually hated what the roller was doing. It was soaking up a lot of the paint, and this paint was not exactly cheap. It was like $30 for this little pint or quart, I think they call it. But I didn't like the roller, so I'm actually going to paint the entire thing with that brush that I love so much and just scrap the roller. And be prepared, you're going to see here in a minute, be prepared to get very, very messy when you do this. Because of all the sanding and the spray painting, there was spray paint dust all over the garage floor, and you are gonna see how dirty my pants were from going up and down as I was getting on the floor and painting. So just be prepared to get messy. I did do 3 coats on the entire island. I didn't think you wanted to see me paint 3 coats, but I did do 3, and I still have some paint left over. I am going to have some touch-up spots I need to do on the bottom once we get the island in place, but I did 3 coats total so far. I really suggest doing this kind of up and down motion if you're going to use a brush. After you get the paint on, just kind of go up and down and smooth everything out so you'll have less brush strokes that way. Now it was time for me to take the old island apart. I believe we got this island on Craigslist like 5 or 6 years ago. The top was actually a different color. I will insert a clip here of the underneath side of it, the color that it used to be, but we did paint it black. This was really difficult because they used pocket hole screws, but lots of them were completely stripped. So it took me quite a while, and I had to use different attachments to kind of get it to work. You're going to see when the camera starts shaking, those are the screws that were completely stripped. So it took a long time to get this top off, but I was successful. I was able to get the top off. I did try to get some of the screws out for safety just because so none of them kind of fell out when we were carrying this down to the garage later. And I wasn't able to get all of them out, so I did have to leave some of them in. But that's okay. The top came off without a hitch, and we need that top for the new island. So I was happy that it came off all in one piece. I don't think that this current island is going to go to waste. I'm pretty sure my husband said he was going to use it in the garage for something, maybe a workstation or something like that. I'm not sure, but I do think that we're holding on to this. It was finally time to bring the base upstairs, which was a little bit tricky. I don't know how much I helped, but we managed to get it up the stairs. We did use a dolly. We wrapped it in a sheet, and then we used like one of those, I don't know what they're called, but so stuff doesn't fall off. I can't think of the name right now, but we were able to get it up the stairs. We got it in place, and we were able to get the top on without anything splitting. We could not use the original screws because they were so stripped, but we did manage to use some screws that we actually just had in our stash. And you are going to see that I'm going to have to push really heavy on the edges. So if you see me leaning over in a little bit like a crazy person, like I'm like relaxing on the island or something, it's because he needed me to put some pressure on those corners so the screws would go in all of the way and the top would be nice and secure. This shelf was an absolute pain to get in. There were not the same amount of holes on both sides for the brackets that hold the shelf. So I put the air fryer in there as a guide. I put the little brackets on both sides. It was uneven. It was wobbly. It wasn't working. It was a whole issue. And you are going to hear me and my husband having a conversation about how bad my arms burn here in a minute. I have no upper body strength. All of my strength is in my legs. So I actually, at some point, had to crawl inside and use my legs to actually help me hold up this shelf because my arms were giving out. Can I let go?
Nope.
Well, I'm gonna let go.
I can't.
I know, I'm saying I don't have any upper body strength, babe. I got none.
Design N on the way. Alrighty.
Why does it still look uneven? Once we finally got that shelf in, it was time to put the doors on and put the drawers in. I was getting so excited that we were wrapping this up.
Yeah, looks pretty good.
Drawers! I did not do a perfect job, so I did have to do a few touch-ups just with a small brush because it was hard to see in the garage. But it didn't take me long at all to do these touch-ups and then let them dry overnight. And guess who is sitting right next to me at all times? I wonder if you can guess. I did need to put some pads on the inside because I had taken them out when I painted the drawers and the doors. And then it was time to just give everything a nice vacuum and wipe down. I am going to be putting stuff inside of here, but I'm going to be showing that in a different video because I'm assuming you guys came here for the building refinishing process, not for the organization. But don't worry, if you want to see that organization, it will be coming in a random home updates video. So I am not going to leave you hanging, I promise. Let's remind ourselves for a second what this $10 cabinet looked like when we purchased it. And now, after lots of hard work, here is the final reveal. We love this. It looks so amazing with the rest of our cabinets, and it gives us so much more storage. We are pumped. Thank you guys for watching today's video. We hope you found it helpful and entertaining. Make sure that you check out the video and the playlist on the screen, and as always, smash that subscribe button so you can become part of our YouTube family. Bye!